Today's episode in the How to Manifest Big in 2024 is happening in my bed. Today, there was no other place I could find other than the bedroom for the conversation we are about to have with my good friend, my confidant, my business comrade, and sexual nutritionist, Miss Tamina Paris. Welcome, Tamina, to this wild ride in How to Manifest Big in 2024.
Hey,
How do you feel?
I'm giddy as fuck. I'm like,
Yep, it's what it needs to be, because today we are going to be talking about juicy intimacy, creamy goodness within ourselves. What else are we going to be talking about? Give it to us.
we're talking about delectable relationships.
Uh,
We're talking about growth through seeing each other and being authentically in love with each other, learning how to love, growing and
uh,
glowing through love, honey.
oh my God Almighty. I don't think, I know that this talk right here is the most anticipated conversation in this whole series, because we got a lot of woo-woo conversations in this series. And there goes one of my lights. That's cool. We've got a whole lot of woo-woo going on in this series, which is great. We've got crystals, we've got astrology, we've got destiny cards, we've got feng shui. But baby, 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 when it comes to intimacy, authentic and genuine intimacy, from what I understand, we can't cultivate intimacy, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but we can't cultivate intimacy within our relationships without first having it with ourselves. Is this a true statement?
That's 100% true. Absolutely.
Ooh, 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 ooh. And is it safe to say that in this boudoir conversation that you're going to be giving us some tools, tricks, things to know, to take note of, so that we ourselves can cultivate this, not just in the new year. This is something that I really want to drive home in this series. This is not just, especially our conversation, for a new year resolution or a manifestation to take with you, and then like, okay, like this is my goal for the year. This is beyond. This is so that we're actually enjoying juicy, what did you say? There's the juiciness in our connections, authenticity in our self-expression, our sexual expression. What else would you add to that?
I mean, ultimately, all of those things lead to spiritual abundance.
Oh,
Like, I'm going to drop that right now. Like, when your relationships are nutritious, when you have a great relationship with yourself and you're able to share yourself with other people, you're rich, you're abundant. Like, money isn't the measure for enjoying your life anymore. It's about enjoying your relationships. So, these seeds that we're planting today is something that you will be able to carry through to the rest of your life so that you can enjoy it, so that it can feed you.
oh my God. Well, thank you for the first round of chills to hit my body. I am glad I'm in a comfortable position. I'm glad I'm in bed because I legit just got chills. Thinking about expression and relationship and connection as nutrition has already kind of blown my mind, even though I know you and we've been on this journey together, through self-expression and connection and relationship. For context, I think we should, before we just jump right on in, let's lube us up, let's warm it up. Tamina and I met back in 2014.
Yeah,
Yeah, I believe it was 2014. As professional dancers, Tamina and I toured with Lady Gaga on the Art Pop, the Art Rave tour, the Joanne tour, and went on to the Enigma Las Vegas residency. So we have done a lot of growing up together, but while exploring the world. Tamina and I are also kind of famous within that group of folks for being the ones like to to lollygag, to just like go through different like little weird neighborhoods in Europe and all over the world and kind of gallivant and shop. She and I both have a very Venusian quality to both of us. We love pretty things. We love delectable, luxurious experiences, which we had plenty of during that whole time. But also, when we met, I want to say, like, we kind of had this, we have had a side by side growth journey towards creating something in alignment with, I mean, I call it soul alignment, you know, like a calling to create something for ourselves that serves a greater good. Right. And I feel like we've gone through so many iterations together of like, what is it? I feel like it, maybe it's this thing. And if anybody has trialed and errored our way through creating a business around soul calling and soul work, it's you and me. What do you think that those experiences that we've had together, you know, from the professional dance side, like the fact that we've gone from how many, so what is that, 2 world tours together, the Vegas residency together, what do you think, what role has your history as a dancer played into the sexual nutrition work that you're doing now?
Great question. So many layers of it. I think the biggest thing that's coming up now is that when it comes to being in a relationship, you are performing, like straight up. You just being inside of a relationship, it calls on an aspect of you. And how that connects to my experience on stage is that I started to realize there doesn't have to be a gap between the person I'm trying to portray and who I am. That,
Mm,
right? That there can be an integration of I can really actually be myself at every moment when I'm on the stage. And when I do, I'm more resourced. Like, I'll never forget the time when we were going through a number and I thought I was going to die. Like, I was like, I'm not going to make it. I'm not
yeah.
going to make it. Like, I'm about to die.
Yep, yep, plenty of those.
Yeah. And what helped me get through it was I expressed how I actually felt. Like I let myself scream like I was going to die, like in the number, and I poured myself into that. And it like it empowered me. Like I could keep going and I started to receive from the experience of being on stage, which is so much like output towards the audience,
Yeah.
but I could enter like a reciprocal relationship with my performance by bringing that authentic piece of me to this stage. So that has really tied into my work now with relationships because what's happening on the stage is happening in one-on-one. It's just scarier. It's more intimate when it's one-on-one because the eyes, it's like directly, like it's they can really see all parts of you. You can't hide as easily as on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's the same thing when you bring out that true thread of what's happening, then that also creates a reciprocal relationship where it can start to feed you. So all of my work has been how can relationships and intimacy start to feed you? And that has led me to connecting to our sexual energy, being in healthy relationship with our sexuality, because that is the seed of our expression. Like that's what determines if your expression is going to be nutritional or if it's going to be just performative. So the
Ooh, wee.
yeah.
Ooh, wee. Things are already getting juicy. let me ask you something, because I know this answer for myself. Was it easier, or I guess what I'm saying is, when I say easier, I mean, was it more authentic for you when you were performing on stage or one-on-one in relationship? Like, as far as your expression, like, was your performance on stage more authentic, or was performance in one-on-one relationships at that time? Which one was more authentic?
On stage. At that time, on stage was more authentic. When it came to being in front of someone, that was when I started to freeze or like shift. Like it was like the second I went off stage, I lost my power when it came into a relationship. Like the confident, all the stuff they saw on stage was, I didn't feel any of that when I was in relationship. And that's why my relationships really failed. Like I was single for a long time, and like people would be like, oh, but you're so beautiful, and like what? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just not working for me. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, it's not working.
I 100% agree, and was the same way. I was fierce and wild and like uncontrollable and everything on stage. And that's, I think, a paradox a lot of people wouldn't expect. Like, you're in front of 30,000 people and you can touch yourself more authentically than you can behind closed doors. And it's like, hell yeah. Like, it's a lot scary because you can just kind of put like a glaze over 30,000, and like, you're not in the mindset of 30,000 people. You can't. It's just more like, I'm going to give you a friggin' show. Like, and this is how Graham puts on a show. This is how Tamina puts on a show. But the second you can look the audience, one member, into the eye, into their eyes in the moment, way scarier, way more like, hold on a second. Where is all that fierce ferocity and confidence and everything? Like, where's that go? Because it was like, yep, 2 hours after that show was over, you're like, well, guess I'm just gonna go back to the room and read a book.
Yeah, because the thing is, you're not going to see the audience members tomorrow. They're not going to be able to reference
Exactly.
this moment. They're not going to be able, like, you get to kind of ghost it and be like, great, I left that on the floor. Great. So there's always this separation of like, you're this way somewhere else, and this way in another environment. Whereas when you're in relationship, they're asking you for congruency. They are seeing you, like it's integrity too. It's like, you, how you are there is how you are here, and there is no change. Like, and that's the growth edge when you're in relationships in this way, is that they're calling you to truly step into yourself, like fully realized.
Mm. Or at least be open to the journey together of exploring what it is or who it is. So before we do anything, I would love to know, what is a sexual nutritionist?
I love your tone in the question. I'm like, where are we going?
Yes, no, because I want to know, and I know everybody listening is like, what is a sexual nutritionist? I want to know.
Well, this stems from, first of all, my my love of food. And Graham, you know this more than anyone, like the
Or do.
flavor, the composition, the nutritional content, all of that. Like, I need to be fed when I'm eating.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with my relationships. It's the same thing with the quality of intimacy and sex, because I feel that when we can experience an authentic connection to ourselves and our partners, our sexual exchanges can actually feed us.
Ugh.
It can feed us, you know. We don't have to be more depleted from our connections. They can actually give to us. So as a sexual nutritionist, I give people the ingredients to be able to cultivate rich intimacy in their relationships by coming into a healthy relationship to their sexuality.
And is sexuality, I guess I'm kind of like wondering if it's like a in your perspective, is sexuality like an umbrella for other, like, is there individual sexuality and then sexuality within relationship? Like, are they two things that come together? How do they connect?
Well, let me just say sexuality, sex is an exchange.
Yeah.
So within every moment, we are in exchange. When we don't feel like we're in an exchange, that's when we feel disconnected and separate from the support of the universe, the God, everything. Like, and
Mhm.
being a human on this plane, we are constantly in exchange with each other. So this work is about recognizing the exchange that you are always in, so that you, whether it's relationship with yourself or with others, you can have those exchanges be fulfilling. You can have them start to fill you, feed you. So the connection, how it goes from self to other, is that there is no shift, there is no change, because you're always in exchange. And that's what sexuality, that's what sex is the umbrella for, is that it recognizes the exchange that we're always participating in, whether we're conscious of it or not.
Yeah. So in this vein, how would you define authentic intimacy?
Authentic intimacy is when you're able to share the deeper layers of yourself, like your, how do I say it, how the moment impacts you. You're able to actually fully express that in the context of relationship.
Oh, so this isn't even necessarily, like, I feel like this goes beyond sex. This goes beyond that, the exchange of sexuality. This is like you experience something within partnership or just experience anything. Just an external experience ignites something. Intimacy, I think, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong. Intimacy is then the willingness to express good, bad, ugly, and different of whatever happens within you in an experience.
That's it.
Is that it?
That's it.
Ooh, baby, because that is a journey for this astrologer card reader right here. Because a lot of times I need to take it in. I need to take it in and be like, now, wait a minute. I don't want to overreact. I don't, I want to go in and like clean it up. Friggin' Virgo energy galore. I want to like clean it up and then come in and be like, okay, so here's what happened.
No, and even today, Graham, when I was asking you what's my background like, I'm like, no, give it to me. Like, give me the truth. And I've been waiting for it. And that's what happens in a lot of our relationships. We're trying to clean it up, and that's what kills it up. You kill your relationships, you kill the connection when you clean it up so much that there's no raw material left to build anything from.
Yeah, because the rawness is like, well, that's a part too. There's an experience or a side of you that now your partner isn't experiencing. They're not getting it. Or just say, well, let me ask you, I'm going to pose this as a question. So you, congratulations, I'm going to say it officially, just recently got married, which is just like, ugh, God, like one of the most just like beautiful things ever, considering the friggin' journey that you and I have been on together, especially within relationships and partnerships. So you have your hubby forever, and like it's just like the most beautiful union. And then, now I'm going into 4 years of being with my partner. But what about when you're in the dating space? Like, how do we, because I know, and and I think things have changed drastically in this space, being single now. And so a lot of people are apprehensive. They first meet somebody and there's the there's a lot of apprehension. There's a lot of resistance towards revealing themselves because they're waiting for the other shoe to drop, or they're waiting to see if is this person going to prove themselves to me. Whatever the mindset might be, there's guards up, and there's, from what I have seen and just talking with other people that are single and they're mingling, they're doing their thing. So how would you suggest we approach intimacy and sexual nutrition when we're in the newness of something, or we're just out there dating, trying to like figure it out.
That's the most important time to introduce that, because that cuts through the bullshit.
Whoop, whoop. Wait a minute. Say it again. Say it again. I need it.
Yeah, it cuts through the bullshit. Like all that guardedness, the pretending, all of those things. Like you get to immediately cut through all of that by bringing your authentic self right off the bat. Because then you know if the people can meet you at that level or not. So a story I'm going to give you for this is like when I first met Michael, and we were on a van trip for like a month. We decided, like, fresh out meeting, we were like, we're gonna go on a van trip for a month. We're gonna travel,
Oh, I
live in
so
a van.
remember this.
Yeah, we did, and it was like, wow. And there was still that newness of like, of like, okay, you don't want to show them too much. You don't want to scare them away, like that kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
But living in a van, that kind of dissolved really quickly because we're
Yeah.
in such close proximity. But I remember the one time that I really gave him like my full like thunder was when we were in a thunderstorm, and it felt like the world was ending. Like it was that kind of storm. Like people were running for cover, like in a way that like end of the world energy I've never experienced before. It was like really, I was like terrified. And we got to being close to the car, final stretch, like we're together, like running, like trying to get to safety. And at the final stretch, he runs up ahead and leaves me behind.
Mm.
Something in me
Baby, it
was,
was the lightning rolls, the thunder rolls, baby.
I was like, oh, hell to the fuck no. Like, you are not leaving me on the Titanic as it's sinking,
Uh-huh.
running for cover and leaving me behind. I I ran, I got there and he was in the car already, like getting things warm. Apparently, he's like, I went early to get it warm. I don't care. Open the door. Like I was literally, I gave it to him, and it was like, but it wasn't in this place of like blaming him. It was more so like the rage of like, we're a unit. We move through this together. Like if we are facing life and death, we face life and death together. Like it
Mhm.
was like that soul scream, and I let it out like fully. And it's like as we were doing that, it was like we locked eyes, and it was like we're gonna kill each other or we're gonna love each other. Like it was like that kind of energy. And he usually would have tried to like explain or defend or kind of like, but it cut through all of that, and it was like boom, he showed up as my man after that. It was like,
Wow.
you're my man. And he even said it after. He was like, no, he's like, from that moment I knew that I was your man.
Wow. And
And
so and for context, how far into dating or being together was that?
a couple months, and like of those couple months we didn't spend a lot of time together because we were on the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, like yeah, we were on tour.
Yeah, we were on tour.
So that was so there you go, folks. Like don't don't hide it at the top. Don't conceal it at the top because I boy, the journey to get to where we are today in terms of relationships has come at a lot of trial and error. And by the time I met Herman, I had got so comfortable with my boundaries. And I think that's one of the things that intimacy within myself was realizing that I was self-sacrificing and self-sabotaging within relationship for a long time. And I had diagnosed myself with the 2-week curse. 2 weeks of honeymoon, everything was perfect, sex was great, connection was amazing, and then the disappearing act always. And it was like it was so repetitive that I was like, oh yeah, no, I have a 2-week curse. Well, that's a self-diagnosis. That's self-sabotaging because the common denominator was me. And it was always because I never felt comfortable saying, this doesn't work for me. Whether it was a communication style that I didn't like, uh, just being forgetful of plans and playing it off very cavalier. I, I pretended or performed Like it was like, oh, it's whatever. It wasn't a big deal. But meanwhile, I was over here racking my brain, losing my mind because I was trying to please and was, trying to be what I thought I needed to be in order to keep somebody around. And man, oh man, did I realize fast that that was the problem.
Yeah, it's literally, I always say in this work I do is that our expression is the navigational tool that brings our relationships to mutual fulfillment.
Rewind. That's good. Say that one more time.
Our expression is the navigational tool that brings our relationship towards mutual fulfillment.
Tamina, I mean, just take my mic, take my computer, take I'm literally, I'm so glad I'm in bed for this. My God.
Yeah.
Because there it is. You're making things make so much sense by giving it this context and just this like it doesn't, or it might not, depending on where you're at on your journey right now, it might not feel simple, but it really comes down to simplicity is key across the board, because you either like X or Y or Z, and then don't like A, B, or C. And it really comes down to being comfortable and intimate with yourself to say, I like this, I don't like that. And now I'm going to scream at you because you ran ahead of me, you ass. And being okay, because if somebody doesn't respond to that, bitch, bye. You can't leave me in a rolling thunderstorm and think that I'm going to be like, it's cool. Uh, oh, hard pass. Hard pass. Yeah, you're getting all this rage. You're getting all of it. If you're listening, Tamina's cracking up at me right now. You might want to watch this one on YouTube, folks.
Simple and it's hilarious at it. And it's like, but it's also just like, yeah. And like our partners wouldn't know how to love us if we don't give them that feedback. And that's the thing. We're learning. That's what relationships are. We're learning how to love, expressing love, sharing love. We're learning how. And without that feedback, we can't navigate the relational ship towards anything that feels good for both of us.
My God, that is so true. I have said it in my partnership this time because my little Capricorn with a Cancer rising can be a little emotional storm, but boy, he loves to like keep it together, quote unquote, before letting me know the storm that's happening on the inside. That in the beginning of our relationship, I was like, now, sir, I can feel all of that happening. And it's actually scarier that I don't exactly know what it is. I need to know what it is. And if you don't know what it is just yet, and it's a lot of feelings, let's get it out. Is it a scream? Do you need to punch a pillow? Do you need to like what is it? And if it's an act first, then by all means, act it out. And then we can actually get to the other side. Because what's interesting, and I've learned a lot through this experience of this relationship, his natural thing in argument is to leave, cool off, come back. Triggers this here Virgo because abandonment is a big old thing for me. Now, that's something that I've worked on a lot. And so at first it was like, oh, you leave. Now I'm raged even more now, because now my kind of like default, and this is Chiron in our charts, if anybody is familiar with their Chiron, that just unlocks that little wound, that big wound in me. And now I'm convinced that, oh, you left because you're leaving, not because you're cooling off. And now 3+ years in, we've both learned to say, and have little like key words for like, I'm gonna go, and then I'm gonna come back. And most of the time, and I can accept that, and it feels like, okay, leaving doesn't mean gone forever. But most of the time, it doesn't even come to that. Once we even just say, like, once that is expressed, then it's like, oh, we just opened the gateway, because now we both understand, like, oh, we're at that point. We're at that point where there's something coming, and you want to leave because you don't want to fully express it. I'm shutting down because I don't want to fully express it, or I'm scared of it. And as soon as we say it, it's like key unlocked. Here comes the real authentic conversation. This is what's going on. So it's interesting how you can have completely different styles and responses, but ultimately it's how you acknowledge them. I think was step one for me. It was acknowledge the style, but then to be like, yeah, but when you do that, X, Y, and Z happens to me. And when I do X, Y, and Z, you know, you're telling me, like, oh, that's what it does to you. Like, oh, wow. Now that I understand that part, okay, now how do we get through it?
Well, also imagine getting through that without having to say a word.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So a lot of the work I teach is like doing that with your body. So we don't have to try to wrap our heads around understanding. What is that? Or what does that mean? It's this when we actually give real-time feedback with our body of like, oh, that feels good. Or like, oh, like that kind of like letting yourselves communicate in that way on that level, you get to actually move through those moments of like the ego, the mind, the wounds, all the things that don't live inside of the moment together, which is where intimacy is birthed. You get to skip all of that and come into the truth which lives in your bodies. And so what I found is like, so I practice this kind of feedback thing with my partner a lot, where it's like he becomes attuned to my body in the sense of he can tell when my body's freezing, and like it means like stop. You know, it doesn't even have to be in the bedroom context, but just in anything. When my body's freezing or when I'm relaxing, like he starts to read my body because I've let him see so much of when I'm in my yes and when I'm in my no, so that we can understand what's actually happening between us without having to say words. And I'm not saying don't speak. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that we also need to incorporate the language of our bodies to be able to come into deeper awareness and understanding of our connection, because a lot of times our mind doesn't get it in the way that our bodies do.
Yeah. And man, that's like raw heart. Like the body is like, in this, I feel like the body's like the container for the heart, and the words can be the container of the mind, and the mind and heart don't always sync up, you know, but the heart is always the most authentic, the most genuine, and we show it. It's so true. Like, to hear you say that, I'm like, okay, wow, boom, light bulb, yet another one. I'm gonna ask you another question, and I've already just
Before you ask me, I want to add one more thing to that.
okay, add it.
Not just the heart, it's also like your sacral, like it's also like the lower sex energy, like sexing energy.
Sexing energy, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, because like the truth of that too, because I think a lot of times we don't incorporate that. Like we don't connect our heart and our feelings to our sex. And it's like it's all part of the picture.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the chakras for a reason.
So
And
I had to include that
no, I'm
because
glad you did, because the root and sacral are, I mean, they're all integral, but like that's the base, that's the epicenter. Like our sense of foundation is coming from that. Whew. Oh my gosh. Okay. Ask your question, Graham. Here we go. How does our sexual energy affect or play a role in our ability to cultivate intimacy?
Mhm. So our sexual energy is the root source of our expression. So our expression, okay, these are big concepts. I'm just wanting to make it like super, super, super clear.
Yeah.
Because when I think about when I'm performing on stage or when I'm performing in front of my partner, all of the aspect of me expressing like how I'm feeling in the moment comes down to my sexuality. My sexuality is the source that feeds what I'm expressing.
Mm.
And sexuality, when we come back to it from the beginning, sex is the exchange, right? The exchange that is happening in the moment. So when I'm in tune with my sexuality, I'm in tune with how does my body feel within this moment? What's alive with me in this moment? And our society has been cut off from our sexuality and the innocence and the purity of it. So we shame it and we shut it in the corner. And when we shut our sexuality in the corner, we're shutting away how we're feeling in the moment. We're not in tune with that. And more specifically, we're not allowing ourselves to experience pleasure in the moment because we think that that's bad. We think that it's shameful. Like, oh, this moment feels, oh my God, like I could orgasm in this moment. We don't let ourselves feel that. We say, no, it's easier to look at where are things going badly? Where are things not right? So coming into right relationship, healthy relationship to your sexuality gives you the full spectrum of ingredients to play with in terms of how you're feeling in the moment. You're able to experience a wider spectrum of experiences in your body, from pleasure to pain, like all of it becomes available. And that variability can be expressed. When we're not connected to our sexuality, we're putting up a performance. We're putting up the idea of what we think we should feel, how we think we should look. So life never actually comes into us. We're never fed by the experiences. It's like it's always like this, and nothing ever enters us. So your original question was, how does sexuality connect to our expression? And that's why.
So I understand that you have performative sexual energy archetypes, and I am dying to know because I want to know where I fit in, and I know the listeners are going to want to know where they fit in these archetypes, but also what happens once we know our archetype and what we do after. So please share with us these archetypes and what they are.
Yes. So we have 5 performative sexual energy archetypes that we can be playing in relationships. The first one is the porn star. So
Yes.
this one happens when we're really, oh my gosh, it's like we're all about pleasure. Like we want to be in this like hypersexual space. And a lot of times we leave ourselves behind. We keep our true desires under wraps. And, often we're seeking validation through concealing our real needs. So it's performing sexual acts for validation.
Yeah.
The next one is the diva. So the diva's got a checklist for herself and others, like a list of standards, having high standards and meticulously curating an image, to meet a specific requirement. So this quest for perfection defines her relationships or lack thereof.
Wow.
Definitely, I was a diva.
Oh, I'll share where I fit in the spectrum for sure. Once we get through them, I'll let you know.
Okay, the next one is the manager. So the manager is takes the wheel of the relationship, overseeing like all aspects of the relationship, usually the primary caregiver, provider, multitasker, just always wanting to be the one responsible for driving the connection forward. And feeling responsible for the relationship ultimately. Eyes on the road, driving the relationship, directing it.
Maybe I'm guilty. Maybe, I'll share later.
So next to the homie. Homie,
Yes, come on, homie.
come on, homie. Homie. Homie is like their mantra is go with the flow. You know, they're just going with the flow, avoiding the specifics, avoiding people, you know, wanting to be easygoing and agreeable, even if it means putting their own needs on the back burner. It's all about having like a laid back, likable image.
Boy, didn't I pretend to be the homie for years on years on years. My God.
You know?
It
Yeah, you
did.
know, that's cool.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Like you forgot about the
While
plans that, yeah, you forgot about the plans that I totally like spent a lot of time cultivating and curating for us. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Yeah, no, I'm good. A ball of fire on the inside.
honestly, like for me, it was like hang up the phone. I'm like, yeah, okay, click. Like on the bed. Like I remember having screaming fits on the floor, like people thinking I was probably dying up in there.
Oh yeah,
Like,
no, that was me at dance clubs, like on all fours, pounding the floor. And meanwhile, people asking what I was on. And I'm like, no, I'm not on anything other than a douchebag that, canceled my plans.
yeah, exactly. So
And
that's the whole,
pretending like I was okay with it. That's the other half of that. Oh, it wasn't that you canceled plans. It's that I pretended it was okay.
that's it. That's it. Exactly. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So the last one is the talker. So the talker communicates selectively. You know, they share external matters openly, but keeps their true feelings under wraps, you know, keeps their thoughts guarded. It's like they kind of keep a barrier between other people and how they're feeling inside. But they can talk about everything else all day. All the things that don't matter, talk all around all the things, but nothing actually lands inside of them. It's not nothing's about how they're actually feeling.
So it's not saying a lot, but talking a lot.
Yeah,
So that makes porn star, diva, manager, homie, and the talker as our 5 performative sexual energy archetypes.
exactly.
So for sure, like triggered all the way for acting like the homie for years and years of personal relationships and trying to create what I thought at that time was my white picket fence, storyline that I was also, on the quest for at that time. But today, for sure, dance between that manager archetype, Virgo control is just a lot. And or releasing the need for control it's definitely one of my karmic lessons. And then the porn star, for sure. I mean, I think it comes with part of being an on stage performer and feeling like part of that is what I'm supposed to do in when it comes to sex. And that's a big one. I will say that when you first shared with me these archetypes and I read through them all, I was like, oh wow. Okay, I realized that one of the biggest lessons in authentic sexual expression for me is to allow pleasure and not be the one to create it and to say like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this, I got to do this because that is what's going to give pleasure. But receiving pleasure was never the like top of mind, top of list, top of anything. And my more recent relationships, even going back before I met Herman, I was like on that like road to being like, you know what? Like, I'm actually just tired. And so if you want pleasure right now, I'm going to allow pleasure to be experienced and not me go into like, oh, I'm put here comes the show. Like I got to clock in and now perform. And like you mentioned earlier, deplete. I would deplete myself putting on a show, and that doesn't mean that every time I walk away feeling satisfied or feeling full, feeling like I was just given something nutritious, and it was just more like, oh my God, do I even want to do that again? Like, this is exhausting. So with these archetypes, just a little whisper is in the back of my mind, feeling like there is yet another one.
Before we get to that other one, I want to ask people, I want to give people something that they can do with these archetypes once they
Oh, yes, please do.
So once you've identified your archetypes that you resonate most with, the first thing I'd say is like where each archetype is showing you where you need more love. It's an opening of like where can I show up for myself more? How can I, as you were saying, how can I allow myself to be loved through this place? Like the porn star, if you're all about other people's pleasure, how can I give myself pleasure? How can I allow pleasure? If you're the diva and you're always looking for specific requirements, it's like, okay, how can I actually allow myself to be enough as I am? Manager, taking the wheel, controlling. It's like, how can I be comfortable in a surrendered place of allowing? How can I practice allowance? Going with the flow for the homie. It's like, how can I practice actually directing? How can I practice leading something, standing for something, saying something, creating the tide, like creating the direction of the tide? And then like the talker of like communicating selectively, how can I communicate intentionally? How can I speak about what matters, what's actually true?
Yeah, the authentic, like what's going on inside, and not just like the chatter that kind of gets you through any kind of connection, conversation, anything. It's more like, no, what's true right now.
And maybe it's less words, but it's the what's happening really inside.
Boy, it sounds like to me like the talker is one that might really, like, maybe one of the lessons for the talker over time is learning the body language, like how you and Michael can really like tell without words that your body is saying everything it needs to say. The talker might really find learning the art of authentic body language is like going to be integral. Ooh. So when each of these archetypes learns or is in process of learning these like karmic lessons, where do they end up?
They end up as the jaguar. So let me tell you about the jaguar. So the jaguar is seductive and fierce. It's like the jaguar embodies the full spectrum of expression because they can ride the wave of their in the moment experience. It's like a fierce surrender of their body to the primal flow of love. And whatever shape love takes in the moment, they can express that with their bodies, whether it's like fast, slow, whether it's like fierce, like rah, like primal no, or like a saucy, like juicy yes. Like the jaguar is available to respond to the moment, but like always in service to love. So whatever's happening in the moment, like we can see all of those archetypes, like they become the jaguar when they're able to be in tune with themselves and their body, and being able to like step into the version of themselves that can be fully expressed and comfortable meeting the immensity of the moment, because love can be scary, right? And it requires a fierce commitment, and it also requires like a sultriness, like a softness of like Like like, oh my gosh, there's so much to it. I'm like, I feel it in my body. It's like love can be an ocean of experiences, and the jaguar has the courage, the power, the strength, and and like the devotion to be able to become the shape of love in any given moment.
Wow. I mean, even just in the vein of sex, how often and how many different experiences do we have in that one act? And to be in the jaguar expression, to be able to move comfortably and confidently and in a way that will, in service to love, in service to the moment, being authentic with all those experiences. So if pleasure turns to pain, the jaguar can move and express it verbally with their bodies, whatever, and to get back into the pleasure space. Oh, Tamina Paris. Sexual nutrition is a beast, is it not? My God. See, this is why I had to be in bed. I had to be in bed because right above my bed, they're not jaguars, but they are cheetahs. And I was like, this is just too perfect, because this archetype that just imagining, I mean, and I can kind of off the top of my head count the number of times that in relationship, in sex, that I've done that. And I can count way more times that I didn't, and how inspiring it is to think of intimacy and sexuality and expression in this context. Because as soon as you say jaguar, it's like I get it, like the minks, and like, how they're so sexy, and it's so primal. It really is. The jaguar can go fast, it can go slow, it can hunt, it can be prey, it can, like, oh my gosh, Tamina.
Okay, I'm curious then, like, so what was the difference for you when you were in the jaguar energy in the bed and when you weren't? Well, we already know when you weren't. Like, what did that feel like to be those moments when you were in your jaguar energy?
I well, and I honestly think of how I felt after, because when I was vocal, or when I did shift my body, when I did, because for me it's a lot about like saying it, like I just need to say like, ooh, like no, like, or just physically moving and changing. I didn't do that often because I was over there being the fucking porn star, trying to, please that way. So when I actually spoke to what was pleasurable in the moment, and as the moments shifted and as positions changed afterwards, I mean, it was like high as a kite. Like my body felt light, my whole energy field felt like a portal, and it was just like, is this is what I've been like missing out on? Like, what have I been doing all these other times, and really I can think of like the two relationships where I really have been in that more nutritious space, as like that jaguar energy. And I mean, it really negated every relationship prior. It was just like, oh, there's no way that I'm not gonna work to be like this all the time. And it's work, I will say. Like, I feel like the pandemic, did something to like to being in panic mode and like losing control, in the sense of like, oh, my external environment is so wild. And like I feel like that was a marker where I kind of like, oh, wait a minute, like I'm going back and forth now, because now I'm not just responding to, like, the norm has completely shifted on a global level. And I feel like that played with all of us. It like took us through, you know, connection and relationship was something else. It turned into something else. There was that. And then like career and owning a business and doing like all of that, how that can take me on a road of like, oh, I feel like I need to just control everything. I need to be a manager. Like if I don't do it, no one else is going to do it. And then realizing like, oh no, wait a minute, I don't have to be that. Like there's a lot of I find myself having to remind myself like, you're not alone in this now, like, and to soften into allowing my partner to show up. And every time I do, there's the nutrition, and so it's like learning to stay in that space. I don't need to be the diva for him, and that's something that feels really good. But the manager for sure is the one that I go, if I'm going to be doing a dance back and forth between Jaguar and something else, it's that manager, because shutting off that need for control, it's a conscious effort for me. But every time I do it, it's like the relaxing, like that's when we enjoy each other so much in that softer space, or in the like, I relinquish the need for control in this moment, take the wheel. And that right there that's the juice.
That's the juice. Yeah.
For someone who is prone to managing, and being in leadership positions. I feel like in dance world, being an assistant choreographer, being a movement coach, then shifting into like full-time entrepreneurship, like you're always at the helm. And so discovering when to shut it down and to allow your partner in to like say, here, like, I don't need, I need to be in control, or I have to be out there, but in here with you and I feel like it's a dance, and the dance requires leadership, and it also requires surrender. Woo, boy. Okay, so I want to know, and I know the listeners want to know, how do we deepen this work with you? Because I think you've opened a lot of eyes. I think some people's palms might have been a little sweaty at certain points. I feel like, some people might get a little anxious. They've acknowledged what archetype they are. They probably acknowledge that I want to be a Jaguar too. So how do we deepen our work with you as our guide?
Yes. So there's two ways that you're going to be able to deepen yourself into this work. So I want to give a gift to this community, a
Oh my
free.
God.
Yes, we want to give a little gift because we've been talking about like what nutritional sexual energy is. Like we've been ideating on that, but there's nothing that can top the physical experience of like actually embodying that for yourself. So I have a free expression masterclass for you called Juicy Yes,
Oh,
where you're going to start to get to taste what does nutritional sexual energy mean for you, and like what does a genuine yes feel like in your body, so that you can start to attune yourself to that feeling in order to invite more of it into your life.
you're going to give this everybody for free?
Yeah, it's a little masterclass.
Oh my God, Tamina. Oh my gosh. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, because like it really ties into manifestation, right? It's like, what do you want to manifest in your 2024? Things that have you say yes. So you got to get to know, what does that yes feel like with your body?
Yes. Thank you. Oh my God. Like that's huge. I'm gonna say something when you tell us beyond that masterclass how we get to you, how we work with you, because there's something that I want to share that I haven't shared with you yet. So I
Oh
want to
shit.
do that. I want to do that after you tell us more.
Oh, come on. I'm like, this okay. I'm excited. I'm curiosity peaked. Um, and then after that, like the next thing to work with me is the 30-day challenge. It's called the I Feel So Juicy challenge.
Mm.
So this is a 30-day challenge to help you unlock like the your full raw expression, whether it's your primal no, your juicy yes, like really coming into that inner jaguar for you so that you can feel comfortable being that in that archetype inside of your relationships. So yeah, I love this because I do it through my app, and like every day you get like a 20-minute exercise that you can quickly do in the morning. You can feed yourself, you can come into healthy relationship with your sexuality so that you can start to be able to experience that spiritual abundance that we talked about in the beginning, right? Being in healthy relationship with yourself and in the world.
Wow. Okay, so I'm going to put all of your information in the show notes. So whether you're listening to this on a podcast platform or you're listening to this on YouTube, it'll be in the show description. Everything, every single link and everything that Tamina sends me will be, your access to her will be right there in the show notes. So all you got to do, if podcast, slide down on this episode, everything's going to be there. YouTube, show description, all the links, all the, like, the masterclass, her app, because yeah, the lady's got an app. And you're after listening to this, I think everybody's going to want to go hop into this app and discover their juicy yes or primal no. But
Forgot
yeah,
to mention, I have a promo code too.
what's the promo code?
Promo code is manifest for 20% off of the 30-day challenge for anyone who decides to start.
Oh my gosh, that will also be in the show notes, folks. So don't worry. Oh my gosh, this is just, oh my God, Tamina, I just can't. But this is what I want to share with you, because juicy yes and primal no is an evolution. Well, in my brain, it's an evolution of something that you taught me back in 2017 that I have never, ever, ever forgot. And I cannot even tell you the amount of one-on-one clients that have received this lesson from me via you. And that is to honor your yes or suffer your no. And I really feel like that was the beginning nest egg of juicy yes and primal no.
That's backwards though.
It's backwards? What do you mean? It goes flip flop?
The original was honor your no or suffer
Oh
your
my God, I said it wrong. Oh no, that's what you meant. Oh God, of course. Of course I did. I get excited or whatever. Honor your no or suffer your yes. Good Lord. That's what I meant. Gosh.
But the thing is, yin yang, they both are true,
Yeah, that's
right?
very
It's true.
true.
You gotta honor your yes, or you gotta honor your yes or suffer your no because you really meant yes, but you said no and
Yeah.
you're closed off. So they're both true.
Yeah, it is. It is. I just flubbed it naturally. Good talk. Go Graham. Um, but that has been such a like just a like little mental check-in that I do in those moments where there is a decision that needs to be made, whether it's yes or no. And I constantly am asking myself, is it a yes or is it a no? And even when it comes to like connecting with spirit guides and in oracle readings and everything, there I have pictures in my mind. There are images that represent yes and that represent no. And anytime I have worked against it or not listened, I have suffered. In some way, shape, or form. Suffering might be just like, oh, now I'm just annoyed for the next couple of hours. And whatever the experience can be vast, but I've so incorporated that into my cells and share that with clients that have a journey through learning about boundaries or expressing themselves authentically, especially in the moment, and how it affects intimacy across the board. So I just wanted to tell you that you've shared that with me like years ago. That was now like 6 years ago. still there. And now I love this iteration of juicy yes and primal no. So I just wanted to tell you that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's so true. Cause like what I really learned about your primal no, it's like it's the divine yes of your spirit. Like
Mm,
your spirit, your spirit is saying no to this thing, but you're saying yes to yourself by expressing it, you know? So
yeah. So before we sign off, is there anything else that you wanna share? You are at Tamina Paris on Instagram. I'll put that in the show notes as well. Any other thing you want to sign off with?
well, what's like really alive for me right now? Because I've been getting a lot of messages from men
Ooh.
who want to engage in this work. And like, I want you all to know that you're invited. Like, everybody is invited to engage with this work. Because it's like, it's so applicable to whatever perspective you're looking at it from. As we looked at this, the quote, right? Even the example of the quote, both perspectives, it still rings true.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same in regards to engaging with this work. So I just want that to be known.
Well, amazing. I mean, it's yin and yang, yin passive receptive and yang active and go get it. And they can whoop whoop flip flop into either space. That's wholeness. That's nutrition.
It is. That's the reciprocity. That's relationship. That's having sex. All of those things.
Oh my gosh. Tamina, thank you so much. It means the world.
Thank you for having me. You're so nice. This was nutritious.
It was. I'm all ramped up. I'm all excited. I feel like that light feeling, that like, wow, like, ooh, feel like we did something slinky today. Well, everyone, thank you for tuning in to Tamina's talk on unlocking intimacy and sexual nutrition. See you next week for yet another episode of How to Manifest Big in 2024. Cheers to authentic expression. Bye.